Hello, friends, and welcome. If you're ready for a little bit of literature, maybe a little bit of philosophy, maybe something else. Got a short read, relatively short read, the Sutra of Hui-Neng. I have read this before, not too long ago actually, and there are some areas that I don't quite understand, and there's some other areas that seem to be quite elucidating upon my last read. Nevertheless, we will read what we can in about 20-ish minutes, and there is a autobiography in the beginning. That I guess is the chapter one, and I'll see if I can get through that. Here we go, chapter one, autobiography. Once when the patriarch had arrived at Pao Lin Monastery, Prefect Wei of Shaochu and other officials went there to ask him to deliver public lectures on Buddhism in the hall of Ta Fan Temple in the city Canton. In due course, there were assembled in the lecture hall Prefect Wei, government officials, and Confucian scholars, about 30 each, and bhikshus, bhikshunis, Taoists, and laymen to the number of about 1,000. After the patriarch had taken his seat, the congregation in a body paid him homage and asked him to preach on the fundamental laws of Buddhism, whereupon His Holiness delivered the following address. Learned audience, our essence of mind, literally self-nature, which is the seed or kernel of enlightenment, bodhi, is pure by nature, and by asking use of this mind alone we can reach Buddhahood directly. Now, let me tell you something about my own life and how I came into possession of the esoteric teachings of the Dhyana school. My father, a native of Fanyang, was dismissed from his official post and banished to be a commoner in Hsinchu in Guangdong. I was unluckily in that my father died when I was very young, leaving my mother poor and miserable. We moved to Guangzhou and were then in very bad circumstances. I was selling firewood in the market one day when one of my customers ordered some to be brought to his shop. Upon delivery being made and payment received, I left the shop, outside of which I found a man reciting a sutra. As soon as I heard the text of this sutra, my mind at once became enlightened. Thereupon I asked the man the name of the book he was reciting and was told that it was the Diamond Sutra, or Diamond Cutter. I further inquired whence he came and why he recited this particular sutra. He replied that he came from Tongshan Monastery in the Huangmei district of Chiichao, and the abbot in charge of this temple was Wang Yin, the fifth patriarch, and there were about 1,000 disciples under him, and that when he went there to pay homage to the patriarch, he attended lectures on this sutra. He further told me that His Holiness used to encourage the laity as well as monks to recite the scripture, as by doing so they might realize their own essence of mind and thereby reach Buddhahood directly. It must be due to my good karma in past lives that I heard about this, and that I was given 10 taels for the maintenance of my mother by a man who advised me to go to Huang Mei to interview the fifth patriarch. After arrangements had been made for her, I left for Huang Mei, which took me less than 30 days to reach. I then went to pay homage to the patriarch and was asked where I came from and what I expected to get from him. I replied, I am a commoner from Xingqiao of Guangdong. I have traveled far to pay you respect, and I ask for nothing but Buddhahood. You are a native of Guangdong, a barbarian? How can you expect to be a Buddha? I replied, although there are northern men and southern men, north and south make no difference to their Buddha nature. A barbarian is different from your holiness physically, but there is no difference in our Buddha nature. He was going to speak further to me, but the presence of other disciples made him stop short. He then ordered me to join the crowd to work. May I tell your holiness, I said, that prajna, transcendental wisdom, often rises in my mind. When one does not go astray from one's own essence of mind, one may be called the field of merits. I do not know what work your holiness would ask me to do. This barbarian is too bright, he remarked. Go to the stable and speak no more. I then withdrew myself to the backyard and was told by a lay brother to split firewood and to pound rice. More than 8 months after, the patriarch saw me one day and said, I know your knowledge of Buddhism is very sound, but I have to refrain from speaking to you lest evildoers should do you harm. Do you understand? Yes, I do, I replied. To avoid people taking notice of me, I dare not go near your hall. The patriarch one day assembled all his disciples and said to them, the question of incessant rebirth is a momentous one. Day after day, instead of trying to free yourselves from this bitter sea of life and death, you seem to go after tainted merits only, in parentheses, merits that cause rebirth. Yet merits will be of no help if your essence of mind is obscured. Go and seek for prajna in your own mind and then write me a stanza about it. He who understands what the essence of mind is will be given the robe, the insignia of the patriarchate, and the Dharma, i.e., the esoteric teaching of the Dhyana school. And I shall make him the sixth patriarch. Go away quickly, delay not in writing the stanza, as deliberation is quite unnecessary and of no use. The man who has realized the essence of mind can speak of it at once, as soon as he has spoken to about it, and he cannot lose sight of it, even when engaged in battle. Having received this instruction, the disciples withdrew and said to one another, it is of no use for us to concentrate our mind to write the stanza and submit it to His Holiness, since the patriarchate is bound to be won by Shen Su, our instructor, and if we write perfunctorily, it will only be a waste of energy. Upon hearing this, all of them made up their minds not to write and said, Why should we take the trouble? Hereafter, we will simply follow our instructor, Shen Zhu, wherever he goes, and look to him for guidance. Meanwhile, Shen Zhu reasoned thus with himself. Considering that I am their teacher, none of them will take part of the competition. I wonder whether I should write a stanza or submit it to His Holiness. If I do not, how can the patriarch know how deep or superficial my knowledge is? If my object is to get the Dharma, my motive is a pure one. If I were after the patriarchate, then it would be bad. In that case, my mind would be that of a worldling, and my action would amount to robbing the patriarch's holy seat. But if I do not submit a stanza, I shall never have a chance of getting the Dharma. A very difficult point to decide indeed. In front of the patriarch's hall, there were 3 corridors, the walls of which were to be painted by a court artist named Lu Chen, with pictures from the Lankavatara Sutra depicting the transfiguration of the assembly, and with scenes showing the genealogy of the 5 patriarchs for the information and veneration of the public. When Shen Sui had composed the stanza, he made several attempts to submit it to the patriarch, but as soon as he went near the hall, his mind was so perturbed that he sweated all over. He could not screw up courage to submit it, although in the course of 4 days he made altogether 13 attempts to do so. Then he suggested to himself, "It would be better for me to write it on the wall of the corridor and let the patriarch see it for himself. If he approves it, I shall come out to pay homage and tell him that it is done by me. But if he disapproves it, then I shall have wasted several years in this mountain in receiving homage from others that I by no means deserve. In that case, what progress have I made in learning Buddhism?" At 12 o'clock that night he went secretly with a lamp to write the stanza on the wall of the south corridor, so that the patriarch might know what spiritual insight he had attained. The stanza read, "Our body is the Bodhi tree, and our mind a mirror bright. Carefully wipe them hour by hour, and let no dust alight." As soon as he had written it, he felt at once for his room, so nobody he left at once for his room, so nobody knew what he had done. In his room he again pondered, "When the patriarch sees my stanza tomorrow and is pleased with it, I shall be ready for the Dharma. But if he says that it is badly done, it will mean that I am unfit for the Dharma, owing to the misdeeds in previous lives that thickly becloud my mind. It is difficult to know what the patriarch will say about it." In this vein he kept on thinking until dawn, as he could neither sleep nor sit at ease. But the patriarch knew already that Shen Tzu had not entered the door of enlightenment, and that he had not known the essence of mind. In the morning he sent for Lu Chen, the court artist, and went to him to the south corridor to have the walls there painted with pictures. By chance he saw the stanza, "I am sorry to have troubled you to come so far," he said to the artist. "The walls need not be painted now. As the sutra says, all forms of phenomena are transient and elusive. It will be better to leave the stanza here, so that people may study it and recite it. If they put its teaching into actual practice, they will be saved from the misery of being born in these evil realms of existence. The merit gained by one who practices it will be great indeed. He then ordered incense to be burned, and all his disciples to pay homage to it and to recite it, so that they might recite the essence of mind. After they had recited it, all of them exclaimed, "Well done." At midnight, the patriarch sent for Shenzu to come to the hall, and asked him whether the stanza was written by him or not. "It was, sir," replied Shenzu. "I dare not be so vain as to expect to get the patriarchate, but I wish your holiness would kindly tell me whether my stanza shows the least grain of wisdom." "Your stanza," replied the patriarch, "shows that you have not yet realized the essence of mind. So far you have reached the door of enlightenment, but you have not yet entered it. To seek for some supreme enlightenment with such an understanding as yours can hardly be successful. To attain some supreme enlightenment, one must be able to know spontaneously one's own nature or essence of mind, which is neither created nor can it be annihilated. From Kishana to Kishana, from moment to thought moment, one should be able to realize the essence of mind all the time. All things will then be free from restraint. Once the Tathagata is known, one will be free from delusion forever, and in all circumstances one's mind is absolute truth. If you can see things in such a frame of mind, you will have known the essence of mind, which is supreme enlightenment. You had better go back to think it over for a couple of days and then submit me another stanza. If your stanza shows that you have entered the door of enlightenment, I will transmit to you the robe of the Dharma." Shenzu made obeisance to the patriarch and left. For several days he tried in vain to write another stanza. This upset his mind so much that he was as ill at ease as if he were in a nightmare, and he could find comfort neither in sitting nor in walking. 2 days after it happened that 2 days after it happened that a young boy who was passing by the room where I was pounding rice recited loudly the stanza written by Shen Zhu. As soon as I heard it, I knew at once that the composer of it had not yet realized the essence of mind, for although I had not been taught about it at the time, I already had a general idea of it. "What stanza is this?" I asked the boy. "You barbarian," he replied, "don't you know about it? The patriarch told his disciples that the question of incessant rebirth was a momentous one, that those who wished to inherit his robe and dharma should write him a stanza, and that the one who had an understanding of the essence of mind, would get them and be made the sixth patriarch. Elder Shenzu wrote this formless stanza on the wall of the south corridor, and the patriarch told us to recite it. He also said that those who put its teachings into actual practice would attain great merit, and he saved from the misery and be saved from the misery of being reborn in the evil realms of existence. I told the boy that I wished to recite the stanza too, so that I might have an affinity with its teachings in the future. I also told him that although I had been pounding rice there for 8 months, I had never been to the hall, and that he would have to show me where the stanza was to enable me to take obeisance towards it. The boy took me there, and I asked him to read it to me, as I am illiterate. A petty officer of the Cheng Chou district named Cheng Ti Yong, who happened to be there, read it out for me. When he had finished reading, I told him that I also had composed a stanza, and asked him to write it for me. Extraordinary indeed, he exclaimed, that you also can compose a stanza. Don't despise a beginner, I said. If you are a seeker of supreme enlightenment, you should know that the lowest class may have the sharpest wit, while the highest may be in want of intelligence. If you slight others, you commit a very great sin. Dictate your stanza, he said. I will take it down for you, but do not forget to deliver me, should you succeed in getting the Dharma. My stanza read, there is no Bodhi tree, nor stand of a mirror bright. Since all is void, where can the dust alight? When we had written this, when he had written this, all disciples and others who were present were greatly surprised. Filled with admiration, they said to one another, how wonderful! No doubt we should not judge people by appearance. How can it be that for so long we have made a Bodhisattva incarnate work for us? Seeing the crowd was overwhelmed with amazement, the patriarch rubbed off the stanza with his shoe, lest jealous ones should do me injury. He expressed the opinion, which they took for granted, that the author of the stanza had also not yet realized the essence of mind. Next day, the patriarch came secretly to the room where the rice was pounded. Seeing that I was working there with some stone pestle, he said to me, a seeker of the path risks his life for the Dharma. Should he not do so? Then he asked, is the rice ready? Ready long ago, I replied, only waiting for the sieve. He knocked the mortar thrice with his stick and left. Knowing what his message meant, in the third watch of the night I went to his room, using the robe as a screen so that none could see us. He expounded the Diamond Sutra to me. When he came to the sentence, one should use one's mind in such a way that it will be free from any attachment, I knew I at once became thoroughly enlightened and realized that all things in the universe are the essence of mind. Who would have thought, I said to the patriarch, that the essence of mind is intrinsically pure? Who would have thought that the essence of mind is intrinsically free from becoming or annihilation? Who would have thought that the essence of mind is intrinsically self-sufficient? Who would have thought that the essence of mind is intrinsically free from change? Who would have thought that all things are the manifestation of the essence of mind? Knowing that I had realized the essence of mind, the patriarch said, "For him who does not know his own mind, there is no use learning Buddhism. On the other hand, if he knows his own mind and sees intuitively his own nature, he is a hero, a teacher of gods and men, a Buddha. Thus, to the knowledge of no one, the Dharma was transmitted to me at midnight, and consequently, I became the inheritor of the teaching of the Sudden School as well as the robe of the begging bull and the begging bull. You are now the sixth patriarch, said he. Take good care of yourself and deliver as many sentient beings as possible. Spread and preserve the teaching and don't let it come to an end. Take note of my stanza. Sentient beings who sow the seeds of enlightenment in the field of causation will reap the fruit of Buddhahood. Inanimate objects void of Buddha nature sow not and reap not. He further said, when the patriarch Bodhidharma first came to China, most Chinese had no confidence in him. And so this robe was handed down as a testimony from the patriarch to another as to the Dharma. This is transmitted from heart to heart, and the recipient must realize it by his own efforts. From time immemorable, it has been the practice for one Buddha to pass to his successor the quintessence of the Dharma, and for one patriarch to transmit to another the esoteric teaching from heart to heart, as the robe may give cause for dispute. Hello, hello. Okay, sorry, my mic went off. From time immemorable, it has been the practice for one Buddha to pass to his successor the quintessence of the Dharma, and for the patriarch to transmit to another the esoteric teaching from heart to heart. As the robe may give cause for dispute, you are the last one to inherit it. Should you hand it down to your successor, your life would be in imminent danger. Now leave this place as quickly as you can, lest someone should harm you. And we are going to stop there. And hopefully I can remember where we're at. And I'll try to read some more someday, sometime, someplace, wherever it is and whenever it is needed or required. Cool. See you guys later and gals.